This is the European edition of Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. We bring you the European unicorns, startups, founders, regulators, and leaders innovating the rapidly evolving fintech scene today. A truly localized podcast with both English and local language content, with some of the world's most well-known hosts and influencers in the fintech sector globally. Join us every week as we explore what makes the European Union a phenomenal proving ground for many of the fastest growing fintech plays in the world today. Okay, let's roll.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Breaking Banks Europe. My name is Matteo Rizzi. I'm the executive producer of the show. And today we talk about unconventional saving products. You will see a little bit later in the intro that is a super relevant topic for today's market. We are here with three distinguished guests that I will invite to introduce themselves for a couple of minutes. Let's start with Ingrid. Ingrid, welcome to Breaking Banks Europe for the first time.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm Ingrid Brodin, and I'm the founder and CEO of Vindome. Vindome is a wine investment application that was launched about 2 years ago. So it's the first, global wine investment application and platform.
And I can see already that Caroline, that will introduce herself in a minute. She's already nodding as a good French, human, knowing about her wines. Caroline, welcome back to Breaking Banks. That's not your first time, actually third, I believe.
Thank you, Matteo, for having me for a third time. I don't know how you can bear me for such a long
Because
moment.
I like you very much, Caroline. That's why.
Every French is a good human, especially about wine. And I'd love to discuss this later. However, I'm not drinking wine at the moment, expecting my first child. So anyways, I'm Caroline. I'm 32 years old. I'm one of the founders of French equity crowdfunding platform Anaxago. We launched in 2012. We invested €500 million in startups, real estate, and we serve and consult private investors, in retail investors, people who invest from €1,000 to €1 million a year with us.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you very much. And last but not least, from Italy, fellow Italian, Giacomo, welcome to Breaking Banks Europe. Please introduce yourself.
Ciao, Matteo. Thank you very much. It's been a while, but I'm very happy to be here with you guys. I represent today Walliance. It's a real estate crowdfunding platform. We are working basically in Italy, and we have plans to expand all over Europe. As you know, and some of guys we come from a long story, 16 years old story from real estate. So we are still developers, and we decided to invest in the last 6 years in some fintech opportunities and in some real estate investments abroad, also in the United States. So today we would like to discuss more about Walliance and what we do in with this opportunity. And actually, that's what we are planning to develop in the next few years in our group. And well, that's it.
Thank you, Giacomo. Thank you. So, remember at the beginning, I said that this conversation is super compelling these days. And no longer than this morning, I was actually checking my crypto portfolio, and then exactly, and the subsequent
I was
article.
going to say, don't do that.
Exactly, and the subsequent article on the Coinbase news, and they were saying, everything but cash and commodities is crashing, for consistently, for a few months now. So I said, interesting enough, we could talk about, different way of putting your money that is not like leaving it under the mattress or like doing something, stupid with it. So my first question to everyone is more of a when do you think people started realizing that the standard way of investing money, maybe in stocks or like buy your own house, but nothing more, let's say, unconventional than that, or nothing more, with more fantasy. When did people realize that this differentiation of everyone's portfolio was becoming mainstream? And maybe it is yet not the case. And on 1 to 10, where we are on this journey. I will start with Caroline, because you are dealing with both crowdfunding, but also some of the financial products. So go, please.
Okay, I'll try to go. My conviction on the subject is that
of course,
people,
that's the point.
It's only my advice. My conviction. It's when people started realizing that the traditional way to invest money, especially when you're a retail investor, wasn't a way to make money. Interest rates were going to a low, even worse every year. So looking for performance was really a struggle, I think, if you're a retail investor. Unless you're part of a private bank and you have a huge portfolio already, then you get advised on how to make money with your money. Otherwise, it's not something you can access. So I think it's at that time that private investors started looking for alternative asset classes that could help them make money. And this is exactly what we do with crowdfunding real estate. Giacomo will, go deeper on that. And Ingrid about pleasure investments and pleasure plus performance. I think it's something that really touched the heart of investors. So I think that was the tipping point, the tipping moment was that it's like when investing the traditional way wasn't worth money anymore.
I think I can absolutely agree with Caroline. I think the whole trend of, say, alternative investments or looking to sort of spread your portfolio across different sectors, I would say probably the biggest trend started about 10, 15 years ago. And I think also with first of all, we've seen the huge sort of unreliability in a way with the banks. What's happening with the big banks, what's happened with the big banks in the last 20 years. So I think the starting point is really there. People don't really trust the financial markets. We've seen also now just in the past 2-3 years with the COVID situation. Now we have the war. The financial markets are going up and down, up and down. For an individual person who might not be doing this for a living, it's quite unsettling having to check every minute what's going on and to follow it, So I think individuals start to look at widening their portfolio and also look at sort of medium to long-term investments. And again, from our perspective, as we are offering obviously wine, comes also the aspect of investing in a passion, something that you really, really care about and something that you actually can also understand, For a lot of people, it's not so straightforward how the financial markets works. Or, now you have, investment in cryptos, investment in other currencies. I think for a lot of individuals, it is quite sort of scary, at first. So I think it's been a trend that's been going on for quite a few years. And I think in the last at least 10 years, it's really been consolidating. Also, the tech world has allowed for alternative investments specifically, but I think also other investments to grow and to become global with very, very simple tools.
I'm resisting to the temptation to ask you a specific question on the wine platform, but I will hold it and then go to Giacomo first.
Yeah, I was thinking about about what you said before, Matteo, regarding your cryptos. But I actually did not the same thing this morning, but I opened my bank account. I was looking at my investments. And since I know the starting of inflation, I saw that I lost around 13% of investment. So what we think, in my opinion, we need more guidance in the market all over, because we, not just us, we are actually people that try to prepare specific kind of products, investment, to actually all kind of investors. So as all of you know, we work with retail investor, high net worth individual investors, private investors, institutional investors, but all of them are different, and everybody's looking for profit. But the fact is that we have to watch a little bit better how we can get to profit. So guidance. First of all, if you see at platforms, if you see at websites, if you see at digital investments, is very important. So that's why we are trying to, as Walliance, we are trying to bring all the people to come into our system. But before that, they need to understand all of the risk of investments, that's for sure. And on the other side, I have to say that we were very sure that real estate investments were more stable than all of the other investments. But this is not something we can say anymore. We can see, for example, that the cost of the construction sites are raising a lot. So we have plenty of problems on most of the construction site. And retail investors don't understand that. So guidance from platforms, from real estate investors, from real estate developers is the most important thing we have to provide to everyone. If you are an institutional investor, or if you are in any other case a retail investor, then in that case it's much more important to give you some more guidance. So alternative investments have been known as a specific kind of product that most of the times is not something recognized by the big markets. But I think on my side that we are doing a better job actually than all the other bank institutions or by other kind of investment solution, because we are trying to provide guidance, and on the other side we are trying to give more transparency to the investment. So that's the basic point, because everybody needs to understand much better what we are doing and how we are doing it. So that's my point of view.
I actually have to interrupt and say, sorry, I have to agree there. I mean, I think guidance and transparency are two very important points here, and I think today a lot of companies can offer this guidance, which big banks or other financial institutions can't really guide an individual person on all things they need to know to be able to do a good investment.
Actually, without knowing, you immediately transitioned to the second topic I wanted to talk about. So thank you, Giacomo and Ingrid, to bring it over, which is like the education side, right? The education side of the investor. Before getting into that, though, I will actually ask Ingrid, because I'm pretty sure I am, at least, and I'm sure that Giacomo and Caroline are as well. How did the idea, come, exactly. And also, excuse me, I assume that you're the Swedish origin, right?
I am
exactly.
Swedish.
So,
I am 100% Swedish, yes.
And you're based in Sweden as well, right?
No. We are actually based in Monaco, in the south of France.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
strategically also between the two producing wine countries.
Yes. Okay. So we don't need to
perfect
fight
location.
About exactly. We don't need to fight. We don't need to fight about the ancestral. Is it French wine or Italian wine? Better. That's
I'm willing to fight.
Amazing.
No. But you don't have to fight. No.
Exactly. So very curious about the inception of the idea, and then what do you guys do to educate your clients to invest? And is it only like I don't drink a lot of wine personally, because I don't drink a lot of alcohol in general. But am I, am I eligible? I know I am potentially, but if I'm not passionate about wine, I am really unlikely to invest. And then we will go over to Caroline and Giacomo about how do you guys help your investor to choose the distribution of their asset class. So go, Ingrid, please.
So Vindome, the idea of Vindome started about 6 years ago now, over a dinner and over a good glass of wine, actually, where we were together with my business partner. She's not actively involved in the business, but we were talking to a very close friend and a French wine importer. He's from Bordeaux, but he lives in Singapore. And he said, the world of wine investment is it's not dying, but he says, unfortunately, it lives like it's lived for the last 200 years. It's never really been updated. And he had, loads of sort of investors in wine. There were, say, 50, 60, 65 plus, and they buy the wine from him, they store it at home, but he really struggled to connect with the younger generation. And the answer to that question is very simple, because if you don't have an application, if you don't have anything in your smartphone, younger people are not even going to consider the idea. That's a fact. All wine investment in the past, it was kind of like selling Hoovers. You went and knock on doors and sort of they presented the case, and it was very, very old fashioned. And also, if you look at the whole distribution chain of wine, it is very dated. Okay. So this is really where the idea started. And we started I actually studied the industry for, I think, over a year before we defined exactly what was going to be the concept of Vindome. And for us, the really important is, as our slogan said, is smart wine investments. And it's to allow and target a younger generation who is actually very passionate about wine and passion assets in general. We've seen the likes of, the younger people today, they invest in sneakers, in handbags, in watches, it's all sorts of, and we want to be that, but very, very specifically for wine, okay? We might then extend to other alcoholic products, but currently it's really wine. And also to invest in wine is quite complex because you need a lot of knowledge, So, and a lot of the knowledge that exists, for example, before we started, we couldn't find, say, one database where you find all wines in the world with descriptions, and you read the descriptions and they're a little bit like, oh my God, what kind of language is this? It's not suitable for the younger generation. So we've even rewritten like something like 500, 600, 700 wine descriptions, just to make it more understandable for different types of investors.
What is the distribution, Ingrid, of your investor in terms of age? Because you keep talking about younger investors.
Yeah, but it is very big, because what happens is that we have investors from, I would say, our youngest investor, I think today, we don't ask age, obviously, when they sign up at the moment, but I know for a fact, because we speak to a lot of our customers, about 19 years old. And then up to, and I actually had clients asking, but if my children want to start investing, but then they have to be 18 plus, so, but, and then up till I would probably say 60, 65, it's a wide range. Why do we also get the older generation? I think it's because we've solved a lot of issues that had not been solved prior to Vindome being launched, okay, in the industry. So we do have a wide range, but we do have a big chunk of our clients are what I call the crypto generation. They're sort of from 20 up till 30, where they have made a lot of money in crypto, and they are making a lot of money in crypto. But what do they do with the money that they make? They want to invest them in medium to long-term investments. Okay, because the crypto, as you have to look at it every second of the day, 24 hours a day. It's quite a stressful sort of investment. You can't just invest and kind of leave it and forget about it, So I do know that a lot of these younger generations, they do invest in property, one thing. They invest in, obviously, also now we have the fantastic metaverse, and they invest in wine, cars, watches, things that they're also extremely knowledgeable, and they look at what are they investing in. They want green investments. They want environmentally friendly investments. They really care about which companies they invest in. They're not just, maybe like I would say my generation, we didn't really consider that so much. unfortunately. So yeah, so it's a wide range, but yeah, it is. We do have a lot of the younger ones, and we love speaking to them because also, yeah.
No,
So
no, go
that's
ahead.
really
No,
that's the start of it. And what do we do? You also had the question, what do we do in terms of educating? Because yes, we do have a lot of clients who know nothing about wine. Okay, and to answer both your question, this eligibility. Do you know, if I don't know anything about wine, can I still invest in wine? This is also something we are helping to solve. So we've set up, for example, our ready-made collections, which are there for starters. You know, they have different price
so
tags.
it's like a wine ETF or something, right? Where you decide, you know, what's the right combination of wines. That
we have this sort
the
of
short term, long term. Yeah.
We have this ready-made collections where we have the description about the wine, we have the rating about the wines, and we also have, you know, if it's medium, short-term, long-term investment, you know, and we have.
And you keep it, or I have to have my own whatever cave? I don't even know how to wine cellar.
Vindome does everything for you. You don't have to think about your wine. Okay. So we take care of the wine for the storage, delivery, when you sell it, everything. We make sure it's an authentic investment, because obviously that's another important point. So we take care of the whole aspect.
We will have another. We will talk a little bit more later about the tech associated to it, because I'm pretty sure that you know, the mythical blockchain could be of use in every single one of the business that we are talking about. But before, Caroline, please jump in.
Well, it's really interesting what Ingrid is saying, because I'm always surprised about the investor profile of the younger investors on our platform. They actually, usually they make money either in entrepreneurship or through crypto, and what they all want to do is property investment and watches and wine, something that's really brick and mortar actually. And some of my friends actually founded fintech unicorns here in France. And when we have lunch, they're asking me about real estate. Like they're fascinated. How do you buy a building? Okay, because those guys buy buildings. But it's really interesting. I mean, they are taking risks all the time with their investment, with their money, with their life, because they work their ass off as entrepreneurs. And then what they want is secure investment in stone. It's really confusing, but also what's not something that I expected. I expected more impact, more green investment, of course, because that's our generation beliefs. But the very, traditional way of investing, I didn't expect. That's really interesting. I mean, our investor on Anaxago is pretty traditional. He's a man. Of course, he's 44 years old. He's looking for investment that bring him performance, money, but also to find a way to invest in full transparency, take the advice he wants and he needs. And that's why the educational role of platforms is really important. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about regulation, because Giacomo is aware as well. We have to change our crowdfunding license at the end of this year. The European Union wrote down a law, and that's going to concern all crowdfunding platforms all over Europe. And it doesn't have in the law the obligation to give advice to the investor, and that's something that was mandatory here in France. You couldn't. The first rule of the crowdfunding license was an advisory license, may I say, and it's something that doesn't appear in the European status, and it's just you only have the right to advise high accredited investors, which is different. So you can't address some of the retail investors. Anyways, we're gonna find a way to kind of find a solution. But it's really interesting, because I think the educational roles of platforms is really is really important, and that's what our customers are looking for with our services.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Go ahead. But being on the regulation aspect as well, and after that we go for a quick break.
Okay.
Go, Giacomo.
I totally agree on that. That's the most stupid thing that the European Parliament decided to bring to the market. I can't.
So happy that you agree with me.
I am one of a board member of the Eurocrowd, the VX European crowdfunding network. And we, with Oliver, etc., we have been trying to force, to change this kind of part of regulation. But, all the member states, they all have different kind of issues. They all have different kind of needs. We have a French company which has a license to bring investors to our Italian developments. So we know how AMF is working, etc. And we really liked the fact that we could give advice to the investors because it's something connected to the thing I was saying before, guidance, which is the most important thing. And by the way, we don't do any kind of service connected to guidance in the United States. We do not advise all of the investors. And that's why we decided to create a new kind of product, which is called Premier. And actually, it's a specific kind of product where we can provide an advisor or a broker, which is not connected to the platform, to a specific investor, which actually is a high net worth individual investor. But we are trying, because we are really worried about that point. We are trying to go much more into bigger investors that are more conscious of the risk they're taking, because we understood plenty of times that small investors don't understand the risk. Sometimes, once happened that an investor told us, okay, there's this real estate development should have been finished around December 2020. And we said, look, COVID came, a lot of things. And he said, yeah, but I was planning to go on vacation next year. So I was needing about that money. So we tried to speak to him to make him understand all the points regarding investments. And believe me, there are plenty of investors like this one. And we are really worried about that situation. So crowdfunding and all kind of alternative investments are growing a lot. And we need to give guidance, we need to give advice to the investors, and we have to find a way to also, let's say, change the regulation in the next year. So, as you know, Caroline, there are a lot of problems we have to solve because of the European regulation before this one. But we have to do something about that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I agree.
And actually, now we are talking about like real estate crowdfunding, but imagine, about the startup, when we talk about equity crowdfunding, especially for startups, it is even way more complex. Guys, thank you very much. For this first half of the conversation, we are going to go on a quick break and stay with us. We're going to come back and talk about technology. It's a wrap.
The FTS Group builds innovation ecosystems. We engage incumbents, investors, entrepreneurs, technology partners, and regulators to build trusted and connected fintech tribes around the world. We firmly believe that innovation in financial services will truly improve people's lives. Learn more on ftsgroup.eu.
Hey guys, welcome back. Second part of the show. We're talking about unconventional form of investment. We just closed the first part of the show with how regulation is impacting this. The example was the crowdfunding in this case, but there is also another factor that has an incredible leverage on the way that these type of services are delivered and the way you reach out to your community of clients, and is the technology aspect of it. I mentioned earlier on that blockchain seems to be a very sensible tech to notarize these type of transactions. We talk about asset tokenization. I'm pretty sure that is super familiar to all of you. Giacomo, I think I felt that we rushed you a little bit in your last answer, but why don't you start cracking it.
No, don't worry. I'm okay. We think that technology it's one of the most important thing connected to also the user experience we are providing to the investors. There are plenty of information we have to give to our alternative investors, and we have to be sure that everything is understood in the best way. So we started by creating our own technology, and we decided to attach some points and day by day to our technology. That's why as of today we have a high rate on the platform usage, and so we are really sure that for example, when we think about the KYC or KYB, or for example, anti-money laundering, all of those kind of things that usually are very hard to go through for an investor that is not used to stay on those kind of platforms. We understood that we have to create a better structure to leave them alone inside that kind of process, because we have plenty of people visiting our website, so we cannot stand in front of every single person, do a specific KYC. So biometric KYC, in example, is one of the most important thing we added to our platform. Same thing for anti-money laundering, and same thing for automatic investments. Because let's say we have some investors that sometimes they decide to invest, let's say 10K, but they want a refund because they change their mind. So we also understood that most of the time, those kind of people are worried of investment. So they just decide, I want to put them 10K and then I change my mind. So we created an automatic system that will give their money back. And the same thing.
Is that the same KYC? Like for all type of investments, or depends on the level or how much money I want to put, and you will need to sort of go to a deeper KYC, in comparison to a lighter investment?
Well, we have a single KYC just to know the customer, but then we have another part for the investment, which is connected to the risk. I mean, depending on the points you get when you go through a specific test, which is another part of the process, then you will be able to invest in one project or in another, depending on the risk itself. So we calculate in a very easy way. Actually, we speak about technology, but it's actually math. It's not something very difficult. But we created that thing inside our platform also to provide investors something connected to kind of a guidance, which is something that we cannot do actually, because we cannot give any advice. But we decided to put this thing on the platform just to be sure that a specific investor, I mean, if I don't have the knowledge of real estate or of financial investments, then in that case you can invest just in low risk investments. So technology gives powerful, of course, to everyone, to us, to the investors, and connected to the point you were bringing up before, connected to communication and marketing. It's something very important also, but I don't know what you think, guys, but I don't think that as of today we have specific kind of new solutions to bring those kind of investors on the platforms or into different kind of investments. Well, of course, we can use, Google. We can use all of the specific websites we know to bring and to do advertisements. But the most important thing is the product and how you can get the product, how you can get the investment. So what we are promoting here in Walliance actually is the way you can invest and how the usability of a system is prepared for retail investors. Because, we have lots of old investors that they don't know anything about how to go into our website. So that's why we need to help them, and we try to digitalize a little bit more those kind of people. But it's really hard because those are the people that have more money than the others. And so we try to prepare a technology and an UI and UX for those kind of investors that is also good for retail investor. Actually, for them is much better.
the reason why, Caroline, I was talking about the fact that the technology has, still a lot of potential in this space is because, we were talking about, asset tokenization through blockchain. But truth is that today, and I don't have in my mind that the name of that startup in France that is basically making an isolated company for each apartment or each asset, and then you can buy you can buy one apartment of the building, or you can buy this apartment for 1 month. It's like the next frontiers of the multi-property. But technically speaking, what they do is that they just buy 20% of equity in a company that owns 100% of the business. But it seems very cumbersome, it's and also something super interesting that I'm pretty sure that all of our auditors, which are like a few hundreds of thousands, will remark is that all this very aggressive B2C ads about real estate buying is going through all social platforms. I mean, maybe because I am also a real estate investor here in Portugal, but 1 out of 2 ads on both my Facebook and LinkedIn are about buy a property in Dubai, an eco resort in the Philippines, or this French startups who wants me to buy 1 month of one apartment, whatever. So that's interesting, Caroline.
Well, I don't know about that French startup, so maybe it's a scam. No,
it could be.
No, I don't know. But yes, they're pretty good at that. And that's really interesting because we as a platform never advertise. We get our customers through word of mouth and press relations. And I'm pretty proud of that because that's my job. But we're an investment platform, and I'm quite uncomfortable with all those, Instagram and YouTube influencers selling investment opportunities, and the fact that you're gonna make so much money by only investing 50 euros a month. Well, it's super weird. However, if we go back to technology, of course, it's essential. We don't advertise much about our technology because to us, it just goes without saying. The fact that investment has been such a tough job in the past few years. When you buy an apartment, how many papers do you sign? It's just awful. And investment platforms such as ours, such as Giacomo, such as Ingrid, we're here to facilitate every step of the process, from KYC to investment, to choice of investment, to follow-up of the investment, and to buyout of the investment. And that's really what it's about. And I think, of course, blockchain could be really interesting in this process. Personally, we're not looking into that, basically because we don't have anyone who knows enough about the thing, and we have other things to do. But I think that's the next step, of course, to go for blockchain for securitization.
But to continue what Caroline said, I said, we're really here to facilitate and make it easier for the clients. But you started off talking about tokenization, and Vindome has a very interesting history there, because our initial business plan was actually to offer wine investments via tokenization, because obviously some wine cases can be extremely, extremely expensive, So the whole concept we initially built was to allow for tokenization. It's basically, if you look at properties, basically the old-fashioned timeshare kind of thing. You have lots of people investing in one property, and then you can stay 1 week. With wine, it's a little bit difficult. However, we took a step back in our business plan, because we realized, well, not only was the supply chain not ready, so the chateaus and the producer, etc., because we'd had to tag every single bottle, etc. So it was not just, but also I think the general public, yes, we do read about tokenization, we read about NFTs, we read about the metaverse, we read about, but how many people on the planet today actually do feel comfortable about this? So we actually took a step back in Vindome. Yes, we have implemented blockchain. But where do we use blockchain is really, we just record all the transactions. So the user, I mean, he knows that every single transaction done on Vindome's platform is recorded. Also, the case that you invest in has a number, and that case is yours. Every time that case changes hands, it's recorded. So it's more a matter of showing to our investors that everything you do on our platform is secure in terms of the product you're investing in. Okay. So for us, we've taken it. We are working on a whole other project as well with NFTs and the metaverse, but that's a separate, it's not what we're going to offer, let's say. What we are getting more and more is obviously people asking, why can we not invest in crypto with you guys? Why come, we have the request daily. And we will start it, but we just felt it was the right thing to take it a step back, because for us, it's not just what we offer the user or the investor. For us, it's also the whole backside of things. Where does the wine grow? Who does it come from? It needs to work the whole chain. And the wine industry is not necessarily there right at the moment. It will be, but they're not really there yet. So I think I think we have to, technology is definitely, there's so much technology and we can develop so many things today. And it's a huge opportunity for every industry, but it has to take its time, because not everyone is comfortable with it.
Sorry, Ingrid, I have a couple of, one fun, questions and one fun fact I want to share with you guys to comment freely. Out of 100 people who invest in wine, Ingrid, how many they actually drink it? Because ultimately, the difference between this question, pardon the question as if I was a 12 years old guy, but the difference between investing in a house or in a Gucci bag or invest in a wine is that, the Gucci bag, may eventually over time will fade a little bit, but the wine, once you drink it, So I was actually curious about this aspect. And the second one, so everyone can comment, is, I don't know, Caroline and Giacomo, if you are aware of it, but there is a news that was circulating all around Portugal, out of all European countries in the past week, is that finally one apartment was sold for 3 Bitcoin. Well, not a huge apartment, of course, and it was in the middle of nowhere in the center of Alentejo in Portugal, but it made the news, even, and it's funny because it was probably a super small office of a super small agency, and everyone was there. Was more press and cameras than actually people buying and selling the good, right? So it seems that talking about crypto, new form of payments, you mentioned metaverse and NFTs and alternative investments, these two facts are really, really correlated. So Ingrid first, I'm super curious now.
Well, first of all, just to go back, you also had the same question before. Who is investing in wine? Is it the wine lover or is it the pure investor? And I can say to you, probably about 85% of our users are investors to start with. Okay. That doesn't mean, and then we have probably 25% or 15%, that they are pure wine lovers. So they invest to drink in the future. Okay. I think what one has to understand with wine investment is a very simple economics equation. Why does wine go up in price over time? Okay. It's because consumption goes up, so supply is reduced. I mean, it's a very simple, investable wines, you can only produce X amount of bottles every year. As those bottles are consumed, there are less and less supply, so the price goes up. Very simple. I think this is what's the great thing about wine investment. It is such a simple equation. Anyone has studied, I think, a little bit of economics at school at some point. So it's a pure supply and demand equation. Then you have obviously the ones who invest part, but they invest to consume in the future. So if you buy, let's say, the wine en primeur when it's still in the barrels, or when the wine is very young, you maybe pay, let's say you pay 100 euros for a case, okay? And this wine might be the best time to drink it might be in 10 years' time, okay? But in 10 years' time, that case might be 500 euros. But you bought it for 100, so you can then consume it at a much, much better value, okay? So there are a lot of these. To explain the whole thing, there's also, when you invest in wine, especially with Vindome, you don't pay VAT on the product. We store the wine in what's called a bonded warehouse, meaning if you decide one day to drink your wine and have it delivered at home, you pay VAT on the initial purchase price, not on the value, which is also making you a huge cost saving at the end, for those who are really passionate about drinking fine wine. But so there are a lot of, there's not just one specific answer to your question, and many people, they invest in wine to pay for their own consumption, meaning they buy 2 cases, they have one delivered, the other one they keep and they sell later on. The profit they make, they keep investing in wine. So you have a free, let's say, passion, just like people do with luxury car or watches, they buy and sell them, and so it's not just one straight answer, but it depends a little bit. But to go back to your initial question, is majority of our investors are investors.
Thank you. And the same flavor of the question for Giacomo and Caroline is, we talked about the reason why I sort of shared this 3 Bitcoin apartment. No, it's not a gossip, but it was a news here in Portugal. Is because I wonder how truly globalized, at least in Europe, is this market today. And it's also a little bit of a selfish question, right? Because I make investment here. A lot of my friends, want to, they say, "Oh, Matteo, you live in Portugal. You're always in sunny places, and people see the sunsets here." And all of a sudden, they say, "Oh, they know I invested here," and say, "Oh, Matteo, the day you need a co-investor, just call me." But it's not that easy, and I don't want to get. So you guys are looking for opportunities, great. But how easy is it to get into this business as an investor to cool, or even as a supplier of investment assets? Giacomo.
Well, supply, it's to us one of the biggest problem, because when you look at supply for those kind of investments, it's really hard to find good quality products. But I have a friend of mine. You were speaking about an exchange about Bitcoins and an apartment. A friend of mine, which used to live in Rome, sold the first apartment with Bitcoins, and it was a huge amount because it was around 1 million euro. So imagine it in Bitcoin. I hope he exchanged it in euros a couple of days later, because I can imagine the value today. But he's one of the biggest real estate developers in Italy, and he's investing a lot in hospitality. And we are stuck today, especially if we think about retail investors, into traditional investments. So what we're trying to do is diversify with different kind of investment solution, also connected to real estate. So we, in example, already funded 2 projects in the United States, one in Brooklyn and one in Miami, and we are looking forward to finance another one in Brooklyn next year. It will be around 5 to 8 million. It depends on the regulation, in around September, October. And it will be a $40 million project. And we are really, really interested in creating new partnership with developers all over the world. And we think that this kind of market is really globalized, actually, because, especially real estate investments. Well, of course, we don't have to speak about that. I mean, real estate is one of the richest sector in the world, but also real estate investment platforms. There are crowdfunding platforms, but in the United States, you cannot speak about real estate investment platforms like the crowdfunding we know here in Italy or in France, etc. You have to speak more about different kind of solutions that you can see on websites, because those kind of platforms are regulated, but you don't need a license to do that. So it's more easier to go in the market, to stay in the market. It's a little bit more expensive because you need to have more things connected to your regulation, but you don't need a license. So we think that to go through the sector and to stabilize actually what we are seeing today in Italy and all over Europe. So prices are raising a lot. We know that, for example, some people are worried to buy real estate products today because they don't know the value for the future. So we try to give a chance to all the investors to see the final product and also to decide if they want to buy it. It happened a lot of times that some investors, just because they want to have an investment on a financial side, at the end they decided to buy an apartment. It's something very common in our cases, and especially when we see bigger investors, high net worth individuals, etc. But we think that if we look at supply of products, that's actually the most challenging point of our job. Because of course, all the entire sector of real estate is very worried about what's the future, especially today, and it's something that was not even discussed a couple of years ago.
Caroline, for you too, you think that the supply is more challenging than the demand?
Well, the good supply is. It's the most interesting part, actually. Looking for the greatest opportunities in investments. We're lucky enough that buying yourself a piece of Paris is still very exciting for investors. So we mainly invest here in France and in Paris. And that was the really interesting involvement in our investment strategy in the past 10 years. Because first we were funding buildings all over the country, because there was a huge need for apartments and for houses there. Then the need actually shrinkened, and we moved back to heart of towns such as Paris, Bordeaux, Lyon, that are actually good real estate markets. And we've been doing only Paris since mainly Paris. We also do a bit of Nice, Monaco, Cannes, Bordeaux, but mainly Paris since March 2020, because people need to be reassured that even though inflation is going the wrong way, there's still, there are secure real estate, even though it's not a guarantee. But yes, I think I wouldn't say it's the most it's the most difficult part. I'll say the most challenging, because you need to be sure that you choose the right investment opportunity. That's why people are investing for your platform, because they trust you, they trust your guts, they trust your advice. But it's the best part, actually.
I want to to close up. I want you to comment on something slightly different and maybe a little bit more personal, if you want to. And so I will start. I try to differentiate myself, in my own portfolio, starting with some financial product. I had a terrible experience with investing in stocks and bonds. Statistically speaking, was the endless return to the point of departure. So it goes down and it goes up, because I never had the patience to hold it long enough until I learned, right? And then I started to differentiate with a bit of real estate. And then it's okay, what is next? And then I started to look into and put some money into this alternative lending platforms, right? And so the usually B2C for micro, basically is is a crowdfunding to B2B2C, right? For small loans between 500 and 3,000. The platform is called Lender Market. Great platform, good interest. And then I said, okay, let's start it for a couple of years, right? What I realized that the interest is indeed, sort of impactful. We're talking about 12 to 13%. But the thing is that when you decide to stop, to recover, because you need to get to the maturity of all these micro loans that you have ended, it takes a lot to actually get back your cash with the interest. So very often, this sort of accrued value of your money is on paper, and it takes much longer to actually get it back in cash. I don't know if I explained it myself. So the question here, rather more personal, is what would be your own advice, as an expert, not only in your own domain, but by definition in alternative ways that to manage money? What is the right balance? What would be the advice if you do, like, over a cocktail to someone? And it's not a financial advice; is your own view on how to balance a portfolio, like in a minute each. That's $1 million question. Who wants to start? You're all on mute. So the first one.
Okay, you've got a minute. Go.
Go. Okay, Caroline, you started. Go.
Oh, shit. Okay, 1 minute. It's a 2 hours meeting with a client. Okay. Anyway, if I go with my gut, yeah. I think I'll say that I'll try to set my life objectives first, and then match them with my investments. Depending on where I want to be in 1 year, in 2 years, in 5 years. Because that's a good exercise to actually tell someone, okay, where do you want to be? It's the typical interview question, but nobody actually does it on a personal level. And where do you want to be as a professional, as a person in 6 months, in 1 year? Okay, you have this money on the side. Okay, that's what we're gonna advise you to do. And that's really
I'll stop you right there, because I think that you made a better answer to, and I should have changed the question. So just give a tip to our auditors. That's a good tip. So start with the objectives and then planify the investments. Giacomo.
Well, it will be stupid to say you only invest what you're willing to lose. I mean, it's something we always say that, but we are a business, so we also need people to invest in developments, because we need to get success fees. We need the market to go forward. So we always recommend making a great diversification, which is something we can provide to the investor thanks to the number of projects we put on the platform. But actually, we try to limit the number of operations an investor can make if they don't have a specific. If they didn't pass the test, we ask them to invest. We just limit their investment if we don't feel that they get. They get, some of them get rid of the risk. But we don't want that, so we just limit the number of operations an investor can make. And on the other side, as I said just before, we created a different kind of product, which is giving the chance to the investors for free, actually, to have an advisor that can help them try to understand a little bit better, which is the next future for them and how they can invest their money. So we cannot do that in Italy. We cannot do advising in Italy, which is the stupid thing we were speaking about, the European Parliament and the new regulation. But we are giving them a person and actually a huge network of people that they just can pick a broker, and they can decide to be followed for free by a specific advisor.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Well, I would simply say invest in wine. No, I think
you just get drunk and you forget, right?
I have to agree with Caroline. I think the important thing is, you need to plan, you need to set objectives, you need to diversify your investment, but you also, as Giacomo said, you need to be prepared to lose some as well. You can't just think, oh, I'm going to make profit. But that's because that doesn't happen in any investment, that you just get lucky all the time. But I do think, if we're looking at passion asset, I can say I have my own portfolio on my phone here in wine, and that's in less than 18 months, I have a 25.9% performance, which this is a side of the business that a lot of people do not know, okay? When it comes to wine investment, you have on average between 10 and 12% in the last 10 years, the return on investment. I have now mine 25.9%. Okay. Yes, I do need to reduce some of the cost here because you do have cost of storage, cost of insurance, etc.
Of course.
But if I reduce those costs, I'm probably looking about 18, 19%. And in comparison to what you said, when a user sells their wine on our platform, we transfer the money straight to their account, and it takes me 24 hours and you have the money on your account. We are now also implementing other solutions, better payment solutions, to be able to offer, wallet service, etc., to make it even quicker. But I do think this is also why passion assets have grown so much. You can really make quite a bit of money on this. And it's not surprising. You have youngsters today, they make money on buying and selling sneakers, but they make a yearly salary on it, So
on this,
I think, I think that's...
We got you.
Yeah.
We got you. on this very passionate note, guys, our time is up. Thank you very much, Ingrid, Caroline, and Giacomo, for being with us. So that's great.
Thank you.
You will see, guys, on the comment of the story where to find these wonderful companies. Thank you for being with us, and keep listening to Breaking Banks Europe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Europe, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with FinTech Stage. Don't forget to tweet us out, shout out, or post to the team at Breaking Banks EU on Twitter. If there's something or someone you'd like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next week on Breaking Banks Europe.